what it comes down to is when we go to the doctor's office, we fill out a form and it's the same form every time. And so it's like looking for a red flag. So if there's
like
no
one
red
page
flag
of questions.
Yes. And if it's not an obvious red flag, then there's no red flag, if you know what I mean.
No one's digging any deeper, doing more than a 20-minute consult. Welcome to the Relational Parenting Podcast. I'm Jennifer Hayes, a parent coach and 20-year childcare veteran. Each week, I sit down with my own father, Rick Hayes, and discuss the complicated issues that parents face today, as well as some of the oldest questions in the book. From the latest research and the framework of my relational parenting method, we offer thought-provoking solutions to your deepest parenting struggles. Added bonuses include intergenerational wounding discussions and guest childcare experts. We will also start taking your parenting questions in episode 5, so be sure to comment with your biggest questions or email me directly at jenny@jennyb.co. Let's get started. Brandy is a parent coach and nurse who created Navigating High Needs Parenting. She combines evidence-based research, nearly 20 years as a nurse, a family nurse practitioner degree, and her experience as a mom of 2 high-needs children to help parents become stronger advocates for their children. She helps parents reshape their mindset, awareness, and knowledge on the path to being an advocate for their high-needs child. She believes that no parent should feel alone, confused, or unheard when navigating their child's high-needs journey. She offers one-on-one coaching and has a group coaching program starting soon.
Don't come here.
Like Lawrence, Kansas.
His first sentence was, "Oh no, I hope Russia didn't bomb Pennsylvania." I was like,
I watch too many movies is what the problem is.
Well, we're probably like the first place to be hit, right? Like they're going to point at DC. We're pretty close.
East Coast, yeah.
Right?
That's when the flyover states become handy. And it's like, well, there's nothing there worth a bomb.
Oh my God.
Chicago mainly, maybe.
For sure.
All right, kids. This is the Relational Parenting Podcast.
Enough morbid, yeah. There aren't any children listening, are there? We don't want to panic anybody.
I always mark it as not appropriate for children because we curse and we discuss things like suicide and whatnot. Yeah. So hopefully parents look at that before. But
appropriate.
Right. We are here with Brandy Hall, and she is a nurse advocate, parent coach. She goes by many names. And I'm going to let you introduce yourself, Brandy. I'm so terrible at that part, and I just should stop trying to do it. So who are you? What do you do? And how did you get there?
Okay. I know, right? And then I'm like, oh yeah, I should know how to introduce myself. Oh, sure. So I've been a nurse for nearly 20 years, and I actually kind of stumbled into this haphazardly. My oldest daughter became a high needs kid. Right around not quite 2.5. And at the time I didn't really think too much of it other than like my world was trying to end. And we were trying to figure out her situation, and I was working and doing all the things, being mom, and I couldn't get any help for us, and we couldn't figure out what was going on. And it was like this very trying time. And a couple of years into trying to figure her out, I decided to go back to school. I'm like, I could help people like us figure this out. So I went back to school, ended up getting my master's degree in nursing, thinking I'll just open a practice to help more people. And then shortly after that, I had my next daughter, who ended up being high needs with a host of different issues. Not like my older daughter, but a whole bunch of other things. And I was like, oh my gosh, like how does this happen? And then again, I found myself going to the doctor saying, I've got this kid and she has this and this and this and this and this. And what do I do? And the doctor's like, there's nothing we can do for you. We can't do.
What year? What year was this?
2022.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh.
So I'm like, with my older daughter, it was like 20. What year is this? So like 2010, 2012 was our the big time we were having trouble. But I mean, like, my youngest is 3. So it's been like the last year and a half that I've been like, hey, I'm having this red flag over here. And bearing in mind, I've been a nurse for like 17 years.
Yeah.
Our pediatrician is fully aware that I'm a nurse with a master's degree. I even did my clinical rotation in her office. So like, she knows me.
Yeah.
And
so you've got some credibility there. You're not a hysterical mother coming in, right?
Right. Yeah. And nurses don't make great patients, by the way.
Yeah.
So like, I know we're terrible, but like, this thing will come up and I'll say, hey, so a lot of parents will have this thing come up and they'll call the office right away and they'll be like panicky. Yeah. Nurses were like, oh, we're going to watch this for 6 weeks and then
That's right.
we'll think about calling the doctor's office. So that's me, right?
I used to go 5 days just so I like bell curves, Some people call immediately. I like to be very calm and cool. And so I'll go a week, and watch it. Nurses go 6 weeks.
Yeah. So like, when I call you, I've already done like, okay, we've watched this for a while.
Yeah.
And now it's not gone away. Like, so, at any rate, after having the second one and going through this process again of telling the pediatrician's office that there are these flags happening and then being told there's nothing we can do. She's not old enough. There's no one to do anything for that. Like, all of these different excuses. I'm like, this has to stop.
Brandy, are you comfortable sharing specifics about what your youngest is struggling with?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So my youngest, we first started with sleep issues, which is extremely common with like infants. And of course, in the office, we had one pediatrician who was like, that's really terrible. Like, let's try working on these steps. And then of course she left. And the rest of them were like, babies just don't sleep. That's the way it is. And I'm like, no, actually, babies can sleep. It's a possibility. But then she hit every sleep regression that they have ever recorded as a possibility in the history of children.
Yeah.
And then some that I don't think that they know exist.
Hard to pin down. Mm-hmm.
Yes. She's extremely high energy. She does not stop moving. One of the biggest factors that I tried talking to the pediatrician about was safety. She doesn't comprehend what is safe and what is not. One of the reasons that they didn't really regard my concerns was she's a toddler. And I said, I think that I said, I get where you're coming from there, but a toddler can understand, don't touch, that's hot.
Yeah.
My daughter will touch it and say, oh, hot, and then put her hand back on it. And then be mad at me because she touched it and it's hot. I'm like, we're not. And then same
it's almost like
that.
an impulse control. Like, she knows it's not safe, but can't stop herself.
Yes.
Or
and like she climbs up my cupboards. Like, she can scale up the cupboard and then onto the stove and touch the hot stove in like seconds. Like, she's so fast.
Oh God, they're so fast. They're so fast.
And I was like trying to explain all these things to them. I said, she's not safe. I said, I had to lock my whole house down because she can get out the door. I mean, before kids could comprehend opening doorknobs, she was able to open the doorknobs and be outside and running off. And and she does things deliberately that she shouldn't be doing. But just not outside of those. Like, for me, the safety thing was like the biggest issue.
Yeah.
But her inability to sit still, to stop moving, to stay focused. She'll ask me to do a task like Play-Doh or coloring or something like that. By the time I can get it out for her, she can't sit down to do it. What was the other big flag? Toe walking. Most kids that develop toe walking stop doing it by the time they're 2.
Yeah.
She's going to be 4 in the fall. She still toe walks at least 80% of the time. We did PT for that and OT, and they determined it was a sensory issue. She has oral motor sensory, which incidentally started when she was teething, but it never stopped. So she mouths and chews on pretty much anything she can fit in her mouth, which should have ended when she got most of her teeth in, and didn't. Yeah. Oh, and she has speech delay. So
what are these all indicative of to you and or your doctors?
Well, the doctors said nothing.
Okay.
They still don't think that she has it. Yeah.
Like it's not severe enough.
Okay. Yep. She doesn't have any of the red flags on their scale that indicate anything.
Okay. That's my thought, is it's just outside their experience or training. They have no idea what to make of it either.
Yes. And I think what happens is, and I think it's because we live in such a small area, they have very basic testing. So like, I mean, what it comes down to is when we go to the doctor's office, we fill out a form, and it's the same form every time. And so it's like looking for a red flag. So if there's
like
no red
page
flag
of questions.
Yes. And if it's not an obvious red flag, then there's no red flag, if you know what I mean.
No one's digging any deeper, doing more than a 20-minute consult. Yeah.
Yes.
It kind of becomes incumbent upon the parent to know to learn the magic words to put on the form.
Exactly.
Or find a specialist, just like go past the family doctor or whatever and be like, well, and with your experience, I know we'll get there, but like so then what were your next steps then when pediatrician, family doctor weren't finding anything or seeking deeper?
So for us, I went and I got early intervention involved. And I believe that that's something that's available like nationwide. And which is a great option for children under 3. But if they're over 3, then that's not an option. And that's,
really?
That kind of stinks because that ends at that age. Now there are programs, generally they're county based for kids who are older. But it's a less encompassing program, so that's not as great an option. I mean, something is better than nothing, but to have less options isn't always as great. But when we ran into this problem with our pediatrician was exactly what pushed me in this direction. There are too many parents who don't know to advocate for their kids in this manner. They don't know if their pediatrician doesn't tell them that they need to go somewhere else or seek another resource.
Well, there's no base of child development knowledge. Like a lot, like the majority of parents have never taken a child development class, have never taken a Psych 101, have never, there's no standard of educating parents unless they know to seek it for themselves. A lot of people walk into parenting thinking they're just tiny adults. So I'll just
Yeah,
keep
it's
them safe and
intuitive, it's
feed them
tribal
and
knowledge, and yeah.
yeah, and
Yes,
there's no like basis of this is normal, this is not.
right.
And some
Yes.
people
Yeah.
just aren't assertive. They won't challenge an authority or
Oh, for sure.
ask questions, right? People are afraid
Yeah.
to ask questions. So
Well,
that's kind of why we're doing this, is getting the word out today. This stuff comes up, and here's some
yep.
ideas, and give us a call. Yeah, no. Wow.
Yeah, and that's exactly one of my points is, for generations now, we've never questioned the doctors because they're the
Yeah.
doctor and they know what's best, right?
Yeah.
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 Well, no, they
Not
don't.
always.
And exactly. And I'm not here to say that the doctors are wrong or they don't know what they're talking about, and certainly not to say that a lot of what they do isn't what's good.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes they are people too. And,
Right.
misdiagnoses happen, undiagnoses happen.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to start asking questions. We have to understand what it is that we're doing in our health, not just our health, our children's health.
Yes.
If we are taking care of our children's or our adult parents, or, at some point in our lives, we take care of both ends, but we have to understand our health.
Yeah.
And if we don't ask the questions, we don't get a better understanding. So,
well, and in defense of doctors, times have changed. In the 1700s, up till the 1700s or so, you could be a statesman and a physician and run a farm or an estate and do all those things that the founding fathers did. Things have gotten more complicated, and now you're lucky to be a pediatrician without some kind of specialty. There's all kinds of flavors of stuff and so much specialization that, it really becomes incumbent now that the times are different. Human beings are the same, but boy, you really got to shop around to find a real expert in. If you've got something that's strange, that can be a real journey, trying to track down the person who knows what this is.
Yep,
So
for
wow.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and you've got
and
a
it's
whole list of things that are not showing up on a standard pediatrician's questionnaire.
Yeah, and it's not always easy. Like I said, we are in a pretty rural area, so you might have a kid who's 1 in 10,000.
Yeah.
And I live in a town of 10,000.
Yeah.
So if she's got the symptoms of 1 in 10,000, there might not be another kid here like her.
Yeah.
It's an excellent metric. At any one time in living memory, there may only be one.
Yeah.
Right? Wow.
Right.
Never seen before, which means nobody in town has ever seen it before.
Exactly. So they don't understand, her symptoms or her expressions or, those kinds of things. So it's hard to get that through. And then, so what are your next options, right?
Yeah. Have you taken her then? Have you looked for specialists? Do you guys have, now that she's 3, has anyone given her any kind of like preliminary diagnosis or anything like that?
So our pediatrician doesn't. The last it was discussed there is they would wait till she's 5. And that was pretty much my deciding factor there, because I was like, so we would basically wait till she's in kindergarten for there to be a problem before we would look into this. And then I said, and that's a bigger problem, right? Because then we have behavior issues that stem into bigger behavior issues.
Yeah.
And then we have a poor teacher who's trying to deal with 20 kids in a room who have never been in a structure like that. And
that's 2 extra years of ingrained habits and time, like prime learning years to change habits or put treatment in place or whatever.
Create a routine.
insane to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're finding the way the system, that's the way the system works. What they're telling you is that no, we have to wait for this to become a problem in school. We don't know what to do.
Yes.
Maybe the next, that's kind of like, I know you can't read, but we're going to pass you on to the 9th grade anyway.
Right.
Kind of passing on the hopefully, yeah. Good for you. You're lucky. You can spot that. Hey, that's not ideal. Let's see if there's another solution.
Yeah. So the next option is reaching out to the children's hospital, which unfortunately for us is nearly 2 hours from here.
Oof.
Wow, you are rural. Yeah.
Yeah. So they do have a couple satellite facilities, not a lot closer. It's like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
But getting appointments in there's tight. Sometimes it takes a couple months to get in.
Yeah, they serve a big area apparently.
They do. They're the only children's hospital in this side of the state.
Oh.
There's only 3 in the state, I think. So there's not a lot of options at all, really. So that was kind of the point of why I kind of went down this path, because it's hard to be a parent like this, and even knowing that there are options available, but then figuring out what they are and how to get there.
Yeah. Parenting is tough anyway. You're having to kind of DIY super specialized stuff here.
Right. Exactly.
Good for you. Good on you, by the way.
Thank you. Well, yeah. And it's challenging. And and I know medicine, there's most of these parents don't have a clue, who to call or, who to reach out to. And I found myself with both of these girls looking around going, why am I the only parent with this problem?
Yeah.
Why, no one else has to deal with this. Why do I have to go through this? And I was like, oh, this is ridiculous. I am not the only parent in the world with this problem.
Good
oh
for
my
you.
gosh.
Really good for
you. But every parent with a kid with high needs is like, why am I the only parent?
Yeah. Feeling isolated. That could be bad. Yeah.
It's very lonely. It's very isolating. And even sometimes, it can be hard to meet other parents with similar issues. So I was like, there has to be a solution, or at least a community to bring people together. So that was one of my goals too, was creating something to help people understand more about their issues and that they're not alone, because you can't have things like this happening and really be alone. But I found that when there's truly a kid with high needs, it can push your support systems out. People don't know how to handle it. People don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
And sometimes the people who should be closest to you tend to step back or step away. Like family and friends and those people that you would think would be the first ones to help you may not be.
Don't know what to say, don't know how to help.
People back off from things they don't.
Yes.
Or I don't know what to do.
Or they get uncomfortable, so they just separate.
Yeah.
Or in the same, a lot of the generations, they like to give you the unsolicited advice. And
here's what you need. Here's what she needs.
Yes.
That's very helpful. Yeah.
Yes. And then that just makes you feel like a bad parent.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to be a parent of a high needs child and deal with that as well. So there's a lot of challenge that comes from just being the parent, as well as being the advocate for the child too.
Yeah. And take care of yourself. And run a
Yes.
household.
Yeah.
And, all the other, and
plus,
social life or
yep.
church or whatever
Yeah.
you do, whatever your life looks like before
Right.
kids. And,
Yep.
Brandy, you and I had that was one of the things that I bolded from our two conversations. You said you were like, parenting is already like this insane journey, and it's difficult, and your children are a mirror for you already, dealing with all your own stuff and trying to keep them alive and you just listed, Dad, get to the church, get to the PTA, get them to school, get them the right nutrition and the right physical exercise,
cycling club, running,
and also
whatever
I have to shower, I have to eat, I have to do all these things, and then you add a child with higher needs, or a highly sensitive child, or a child with a learning disability, or any of these atypical needs on top of how difficult parenting already is. It's like where, my thing is I'm trying to create a support group and community for just parents. Parenting is insane enough, and finding support in parenting is hard enough. Add a child with different needs on top of it, and it's like, why am I completely alone in this?
Yes.
Whole nother
Nobody
level.
will listen to me. Nobody knows how to help. Nobody knows what to do. And it's like, it is 2023, you guys. There are specialists and doctors, and we still have doctors saying there's nothing's wrong with them.
Yep.
And your mom gut is like, excuse me.
Hello,
doctor.
No.
So here's an analogy. Most people get through with hey, I played baseball in high school, or, and you go to the next, you do sports at college level. And, this kind of parenting is kind of major league parenting, where you're really fooling around with the system. And, this is a kind of parenting, special needs kids. This is parenting in a whole different league than a lot of people have to mess with, the majority of people have to, which is why the systems are not great, because there's a lot of cracks. Apparently it sounds like you found a lot of cracks in the system.
Yes, for sure.
For your daughters.
I like that. Do you have a membership community, Brandy?
It's in the works. Yes.
Okay. I was just thinking, I was like, major league parenting could be your, that baseball analogy. I'm like, ooh, this is the major league parenting in the major leagues.
No kidding.
I like that.
Yeah.
You're welcome to it. That's I'd be surprised if some, the way the internet is, there's probably already 12 websites out there with that name. You probably have to fight the trademarks, but that's that just, wow. Anytime a normal parent gets to feeling sorry for themselves, then, you get to hear stories like this, and it's like, oh yeah, life does exist on a whole different level. Quit complaining,
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely challenging to kind of work through that path. Not knowing what comes day to day, and then sometimes not knowing why you're on that path anyway. Or how you're going to get to the next step. Parenting's like that anyway, right? You don't know what's coming next. And I don't want to say that as a parent, you're not along for the ride for the joy of it. But I think when you're parenting high needs, there's a certain level of anxiety that comes on a daily basis that you just don't know how you're going to handle the next day. We always want to enjoy where we are and what's coming, but sometimes you're too anxious to just be there and enjoy the ride
in the moment.
You need recovery. You have some kind of you have a bad day, and sometimes you need time to recover, and there's not there's not always time.
We don't get a lot of downtime.
So that's that becomes then you're the next level of defense is, and now what you were saying before about your self-talk about, hey, I'm not going to let this not get to me, but you said something a minute ago that I admired in your self-talk. And so, yeah, taking care of yourself, that's something Jenny and I have talked about before, is it's important to be able to take care of yourself and make yourself, now you can kind of deal with more, but it's a lot of work. Raising kids is a sacred kind of thing. Motivation is key. It's not for the faint of heart.
For sure.
So what's your we started to touch on what you're doing to get the word out. I mean, that's kind of Jenny's mission here, is, find parents that are not getting everything they feel they need, and get them together. And so how are you going about doing that?
That's what I'm working on, right? So I do coaching for navigating high needs parenting and working with parents one-on-one. I'm getting ready to open my group coaching program, and then
Excellent.
I'll be doing a membership with that as well. So the goal there is to create that community, so that we don't have to feel alone in that.
Yeah.
I just started my blog a couple weeks ago, so that'll be like one of my big outreach methods there.
We got to get all that for the description.
Yeah.
Get all that information where people can find you.
All of that will be in the show notes, where to find if you are a parent of a high needs child, or you think you might be a parent of a high needs child and no one will validate it or help you figure it out. We'll have all your resources, all your links and everything in the show notes, Brandy, so people can find you for sure.
So we can collaborate, make a network. Apparently the system's not there for everybody, and we will band together, by golly.
Yeah, that's for sure. People need help getting that figured out, I think.
I love this. I have so many questions that I'm just like, I don't know which one to ask. So yeah, wanting to support other parents who are struggling with this, who aren't able to find. So give us, don't give away the farm here, but what are some typical, how to advocate. So skills for advocating for your child, for pushing back, right? When a doctor tells you, nothing's wrong with them, they're fine. And in a diplomatic way. And so how to advocate, and, if you're just hitting a brick wall, when is that time to go somewhere else, to start the Google searches for finding specialists, and just going over the family doctor's head. It's like, all right, well, I'm going to go somewhere else and get my kid the care that they need.
Second opinion.
What are just some of the general skills that you're teaching parents? Yeah, because you're a nurse, so you have to know how to talk to a doctor. My husband is a nurse. You guys, yet another thing you have in common. And a lot of our conversations about his day are around how he had to handle doctors, or handle himself on a team of nurses and doctors. And I think that's a very overlooked skill that nurses tend to have and develop, is how to talk so doctors will listen.
So I think the first thing, as far as advocating to your doctor, is knowledge. The more you know about your situation, the better, because if they realize that you know what you're talking about, then it's it's easier to get through to them.
Absolutely. They're technicians, just like a brake technician, but way more educated. It's like you have to be specific. They haven't got time to wade through 10 years of symptoms. They want to know they got a problem to solve. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And so going in prepared is good.
Yeah, for sure. So if you can be really specific with them, like when the issue started, what the issue actually is, and really break it down for them, you have a tendency to get through a little easier for them.
Data.
Yes, exactly.
You kind of got some data, dates, times, places. Yeah.
Yes. Very specific symptoms, even as to go as far as what time the symptoms happen. Some things happen in the morning. Some things happen in the evening. They don't happen in the middle of the daytime, things like that. Yeah. If you can be very specific with them, they're more likely to listen, especially if this is something that's ongoing. And if it repeats itself and you can show that it repeats itself like that, you'll catch their ear a little more. And if you can see these repeating patterns and present it to them, and let them know that you see it repeating, I think that's where people tend to fall short, is they aren't persistent enough when something is repeating like that. And they may see their doctor once and mention it kind of casually. And then they might wait for their next 3-month appointment or 6-month appointment. Or sometimes when the kids get a little bigger, they don't see them for another year. But persistence is what's important.
Well, that persistence comes from trusting yourself.
Yes.
So there's a coaching. That's something that people will get via coaching, right? Is if you are an unsure parent, if you aren't well-versed in child development, if you aren't well-versed in disease or whatever, which most people aren't, unless like that's what you went to college for, or that's what you do. Like, so, and I think that there is, like we were talking about earlier, there's this trust in doctors, in medical faculty, that they know that they've studied this and they know and they have answers. And to a degree, that is correct. But there's also something that I always make sure parents are tapping into is their own intuition.
Yes.
Because that gut feeling that everybody talks about is real. It's actually like scientifically proven at this point. And you know your child better than any other human being on earth.
Yep.
And if something feels wrong, keep going until somebody listens to you. But that has to come from you trusting yourself and your instincts.
Right. Yes.
And don't get this is really reminding me, I'm an IT guy. This really reminds me of kind of a technical support issue too, tears, because you want your intuition, you know your child best, and that your concern, that drives you. That's the motivation for doing this. But then you also have to learn how to talk to other people. You can't just yell at the doctor because he's not intuiting what's wrong with your child. He needs that. You got to learn to collect data. You got to learn to speak in terms that the doc, what is it maybe an important question is to say, what do you need to know? I'm describing this thing. What do you need to know? I don't hear that conversation very often. And it's like, what do you need? Oh, I need dates, times, places, they're being diagnosticians. And it's a lot like, hey, somebody calls the technical support line to say my computer's not working. It's like, well, is it on? Check the on button, and and start there. Is it plugged in?
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here 500 miles away, and I need a little more information. to help you. And I'm beginning to kind of see that's where we're falling in the system, is a place people can call to get over a hump, or it's hard-won experience that this level of people have that can navigate people through a challenging time with something that's really important to them, their children. That's everybody can use a little help. This might be a good use of the internet rather than TikTok and that kind of thing. Getting these communities built.
Yes.
Yeah. So Brandy,
Wow.
So presenting data and as factual information as we can to a doctor, especially if it's a repeating behavior, and then being persistent.
Yeah.
What else? What else should we bring with us to the doctor's office when we are advocating for our children?
Yeah.
Yeah. Knowing your concerns, letting them know why this concerns you. Like I mentioned earlier, I went to the doctor and I told them that I was concerned for my daughter's safety.
Okay.
And if you have a concern like that based on their behaviors or their actions or, whatever it is that you're observing, if there's something in particular that stands out, like, like I said, safety or, education or, something in particular, make that known to them. The more evidence you can bring with you and the more backing you can bring with it, the more they're going to hear that as well.
Yeah.
Describe it in such a way that it's not background noise to them, so it's not normal.
Yes.
My daughter climbed up on the counter and fell. Oh, well, all kids eventually do that.
Yeah.
Well, she's done it 12 times in the last month. Oh, well, that's quite a bit.
Yes.
Or whatever number is quite a bit, and get their attention. Tell a story. It's kind of turning into storytelling, right? It's like tell the story that grabs their attention.
Like I said, my daughter put her hand on the hot stove.
Oh.
Okay, kids do that. No, I put her down. She climbed back up, put her hand on the hot stove.
Yeah.
And they go, really?
Yeah.
And I went, yes. And then I put her down and she climbed back up and put her hand back on the hot stove. And they went,
that's
really?
A good story. Yeah, got through there.
And then I said, and then she was mad at me because the stove was hot. Yeah, that's an issue. That's not something that's a typical cognitive kids would. Yes. Yeah. Those are the kinds of things that will catch their attention.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent point. How to talk to the doctors so they get where you're at and understand the situation. Those people get so trained and they're so focused on things, most of them nowadays. There aren't any generalists. Generalists are getting scarce. And so, trying to talk to somebody with 10 years of schooling and 30 years of experience and get them the details they need, it can be challenging. It takes some learning.
The other thing that you can do is write notes, rehearse it before you go, because they are going to be limited on their time. And you want to make sure that you hit your points and be level-headed.
Yeah, don't be upset or hysterical like an astronaut about to die out in space. Hello, Houston. We have a problem.
Yes, and you don't want to argue with them either, because that's going to push them the other direction.
Yeah. Don't be defensive. I always go to the doctor with a list.
Yes.
Question.
Me too.
Definitely. Pull it out in front of them, right? Don't forget to ask these questions. And so it's like an interview or something. You kind of prepare a little bit for it instead of just calling them hysterical. When you are hysterical, when you are upset, my child
for sure.
got into my car.
Have a conversation with them.
Good point.
I love this because this is giving the audience like a tangible place to start. So bringing your data, your evidence, being persistent, making sure that they know why it matters, right? What are your concerns? My child is constantly in danger or hurting themselves or this or that. Bring your notes, your list, rehearse so that you don't jumble over your words and you don't get like nervous and anxiety and all of that. And then be level-headed and calm. So not confrontational, but like
look
present
for patterns in it.
Present your research, basically, like observe, take notes, and walk in confidently and be like, this is what's happening and it's not normal and it's not safe.
Be prepared.
What's your suggestion?
Yep.
Yeah.
And call somebody. You're not alone. And there's people.
That's right.
Like Jenny and Brandy to call. Seriously.
Yeah.
And or email, and we'll figure out how that works. But
I just want everyone to know I don't tell him to say these things. That's why I always grin when he does, because it's very sweet. He's always pushing our
part of it
services.
Part of it's that, but the other part is trying to change the world. All this is great. We can sit around and talk, but if nobody listens, or if nobody, if we don't fill the crack in the system, it's not really making the world as good a place as a random listen to somebody. What are the odds that one particular thing we talk about is going to fix? I have bigger ambitions. I want to fix the world.
I love it.
Find a place where people can get a hold of us, and there's a network, and we do the same thing. Hey, we do, I do this kind of parenting. You want to call Brandy? That sounds like high needs parenting. Call Brandy, and then we'll figure out how to make that work best. I'm a big picture kind of guy.
We want to reconnect the world. Like, we need to get off social media and not to say like building a community these days does mean it is heavily online, but then if those communities grow, Brandy, you're building a membership, I'm building a membership, and you find each other in your cities, and then you can actually meet up in person. Like, I'm in a business group, and
figuring out how to do these
find
things.
each other in cities. I just had a coffee date with someone in Colorado like 2 weeks ago. It was awesome. We actually met in person, and like, she's going to be on the podcast, and we had coffee together. I'm like, I want to be best friends with you. Like, can we be best friends, please?
Right.
And that's the goal, is to bring people together so that we actually rebuild what used to be our village, what used to be our support systems, what used to be like people taking care of each other versus everyone just blocked off inside their four walls from the world, and like seclusion. And
it's evolution. What Brandy was saying before, when you run into a problem that's 1 in 10,000 kids, then the community is very spread out, unless you're in the middle of 20 million people. And even then, it's hard to get connected these days. That was always what the internet was about, was if there's 6 people that share a hobby across the globe, they can get connected now.
They can find each other.
And chat. And so I'm looking at that this way, or that way. Anyway, it's like, hey, we can have a serious effect on people who have a problem that at the rate of 1 in 10,000 or 1 in 100,000, all this strange stuff that seems to be getting worse, by the way, not the autism and stuff we eat. And I mean, there's so many global warming. There's we'll start off controversial trigger phrases, but there's something going on, and there's some weird stuff floating around, and boy, it would be nice to have be able to get us all connected and referred.
Definitely.
Outstanding work, Brandy. Boy, this has been such a journey for you. I gotta say, I don't know if I'm as tough as you are. That's what a challenge. Good for you. Good for you. It's good to have motivation of your children. I'll bet that probably helps.
For
right?
sure. Yeah.
So you were bedside nursing before you decided to go back and get your master's and help other parents and patients with different needs. From bedside, let's see. I swear I'm developing a stutter. Did you always intend to leave bedside when you first became a nurse? Or did you see yourself being bedside, taking care of other people forever? And then your children came along and inspired you to do something else?
Well, when I first went to nursing school, I actually wanted to be a flight nurse.
Oh my God.
So
you and my husband need to talk. He's
cool.
Oh my God. You guys literally have way too many things in common.
yeah.
Sorry, keep going. Your story.
The only reason I was bedside at all is because it's required to get there, right? And then I had my first daughter and I was like, I don't know if I really want to fly. Like,
yeah.
Changes things.
So then, it did. So then I had her, first high needs kid, decided to go back to school. And initially part of me said, I'll go back to school and get an NP so I can work in an office and not have to do the intense. I was an ER nurse. So I was looking for a way to still take care of people and not be in such a high paced environment. But I didn't like working on the floor, like upstairs on the floor, so I didn't want to just like move to a different area. I was like, I'll go be an NP and work like 9 to 5. And then the more we struggled with her eating disorder, I was like, I don't want to do that. But honestly, it wasn't until I finished school and started working in an office that I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be working this kind of this environment. And that was, I would say, partly because it's limited here, but the current state of medicine. Here's your prescription. Here's your 15 minutes with the provider. Here's your prescription. We'll see you in 3 months. I'm like, that's not taking care of people.
Not very holistic. Not very. That's a whole.
No. Yeah. And I wasn't.
No country doctors.
Not at all. And I was very much against treating people like that. So, and then I had my second daughter shortly after, and I was like, yep, this has to be different.
See, so that's kind of the system. I mean, that's the 15 minutes here, if we could get them to refer, what's the barrier to, okay, that's tier 1 medicine, comes in, symptoms present, and then what might it take in the system? Maybe we can encourage changes in the system that would serve high needs parents better, so that you're not having to go off and get a master's degree in nursing to learn how to talk to a doctor to get him to pay attention that, no, I need the specialist 2 hours away. What the sorting, the triage of an issue. Do you have any suggestions for how we could change that?
I think there has to be a better evaluation. Because like I said, when we do those forms, when we go in, they're very basic. And I don't think that those are a good evaluation. And I don't even know if they're current, to be really honest with you.
Yeah.
But they're based on 100-year-old studies,
a lot
to
of them
begin with.
are pretty dated psych studies that really don't even encompass the current high needs systems that we're seeing right now.
Yeah.
Or that we're seeing escalating right now.
What's going through my mind is, so we do have general practitioners, and there's a reason for that. And you go to those doctors, like you have a family doctor for basic needs. Like I have a cold, or my kid has a cold, or we have a fever, or we've got someone's throwing up, or we've, but the process,
stuff. Yep.
the process is meant to be anything above general needs should be referred to someone who can take care of them. Like if you bring your child to your general practitioner with 104 fever, they are not going to hesitate to send them to the hospital. Right. So where is this disconnect? Is it just that there's still a lack of widespread understanding? Is it in just rural areas? But where a GP will not say, I mean, I guess if your pediatrician's telling you all of that's normal, there's nothing wrong with your kid, then they don't see a reason to refer you out.
As opposed
do you
to
think
just
that's what's happening? Your face tells me you don't think that's what's happening.
Well, I think it's a combination of things.
Okay.
I think some of it is a lack of resources in areas like where I am, because there's no one else.
Yeah.
The general practitioner treats everything. And then we can get into sticky conversations with that, because should they treat everything?
No. They're not. They're not educated to treat everything. There's a GP has an education of a certain kind, just like a pediatrician has a certain education, just like a nurse has a certain education. Like if it's out of your scope of practice, and if I'm like as a coach, there's what's the word? It's not morality, integrity. If a parent is dealing with something ethical, thank you. If a parent is dealing something that I am not qualified or learned in or whatever, I have zero problem saying this is outside of my scope. And I think that you should speak to this doctor, or I think that you need to speak to this specialist, or you need to seek out a psychotherapist for this particular level of need. Sorry, etc. Keep going.
Well, no, and I think you're right on track there, because some of them will go to a continuing education class and be like, "Oh, I took a class on that. I read an article on that. I had to do this thing that related to that thing that qualifies me to take care of that patient."
Yeah.
It really does it though, really.
It gives you an awareness. It helps you know when to refer someone to a higher level.
They either don't have the resources, or like in this particular area, I think like the rural areas, some of the people can't get out of town to the further places.
Yeah.
So the doctors will just go ahead and take care of it themselves, which again, same situation. That's probably not the right answer. But they just do it anyway. Or it just, I don't want to say that it's not just easier. Sometimes it looks like it's just easier.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's the right answer, but sometimes
from an individual standpoint, absolutely. There's probably things he can do and can't do, and there's more, they're people too. They're complicated, doctors are. So there's, who knows what all falls into that category if it looks easier. Absolutely.
Right. Well, and I mean, there's a lot of the political background too. I mean, it depends on how deep you get into it as well, because like, Well, will so-and-so's insurance cover that? And won't they, all of that kind of stuff. So I could refer you to this place, which would be the best place for you, except your insurance doesn't cover that. So should we bother? Because then you'll have to pay for it out of pocket.
Yeah.
Well, then the parents are like, I can't do that. You know what I mean? Yeah. So then it gets stickier, and there's a lot of situations like that.
Well, and economic. I mean, there are all kinds of families who can't afford medical care in this country. And I think a lot of people, even when you're middle class or upper class or whatever, when you make enough money, it's still hard, if not impossible, to afford medical care in this country without insurance, which is also heinously priced.
Yes.
And so then it's like, okay, is this a terrible GP, or are they trying to help a family who can't afford care any higher than this?
Right. Well, and this is adjacent to the same situation, the mental health situation that we're in right now. It falls in line with this because a lot of these high needs kids are on the behavioral path. They don't take insurance, or they take minimal insurances, or the insurance will only pay 25% of that visit. And those practitioners are charging $300 a visit.
Wow.
So whose responsibility is going to pay for that? Do you know what I mean? So
it does become economic real quick.
If the GP can take care of that kid for the copay of an office visit versus a $300 mental health visit. I mean,
here's what they're going to do anyway. I'll just do it.
Yeah.
Where they are doing you a favor. Yeah.
Right. Oh. Right or wrong, they're trying to help you.
Not naming any names, of course. Yeah.
Right.
Gosh. That is a tough road, Brandy.
Yeah.
Well, Brandy, is there anything that we have not touched on that you hoped to share with a parent audience, or any part of your story that you feel is important that we haven't touched on yet?
The only thing that comes to mind is I said high needs a lot today. I don't know if that makes sense to a lot of people.
Okay. Do you want to define that
out a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit. So for me, high needs are children who require a lot of our energy, and not necessarily specific to any one type of diagnosis. As I mentioned earlier, like my one daughter has eating disorder, which she was diagnosed at 2. Wow. My other one has speech delay and oral and sensory disorders, and then sleep issues and a whole list of other things. So that kind of falls into those categories, plus developmental disorders. There are delays, cognitive delays, autism, ADHD, all kinds of things like that.
Kind of a constellation.
Yes. So it's not a limiting phrase. So I just wanted to, I was trying to find something that encompassed everything that would be in there without limiting to anything one type. And I found that to be a little bit challenging at first, trying to keep everybody listed. But really what it boiled down to was finding the type of parent, because it's the parent whose child requires a lot.
Yeah, that's a great distinction from the parent, not a medical term, but that's a parenting term. These are kids that need need more time than average kids or whatever.
Exactly. They require more from us than most. And in that, we may or may not have help. Either, like I said earlier, don't have a support system. We've lost our support system, and that being family, friends, the providers. I'm here to help you find providers that will help you get what you need. But even if your providers are awesome, because sometimes that is there, but sometimes the rest of your support system isn't great. Mm-hmm. But you need to have, the support so that you can have good self-care, and be strong enough to be.
Keep your own head above water,
Yes.
And mindset, so and because traversing a child with high needs is not always just about getting them what they need. It's about your self-care, self-worth, mindset,
right,
perseverance, all of those things.
Yeah. If you're not strong enough to get yourself there, you're not going to be strong enough to get them there.
Yeah.
So, you definitely have to take care of you to get there. And you need a community and help to do that. So I definitely am here to guide and help the parents on that path.
Good luck. This is really a dense subject, Brandy. I did not expect to go so many different directions with this. Well done.
There's a lot. There is a lot.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Brandy, thank you so much for being here. Where can everybody find you?
I am on Facebook at Navigating High Needs Parenting. Okay. I have a group, and that's my handle as well. And Instagram, Brandy Parent Advocate. And my website is mrsbrandyhall.com.
Awesome. And all of that we will link in the show notes, so anyone listening can just scroll to those and click on any of those to find, follow, and reach out to Brandy. And let's see, the podcast here, we've got our Patreon open. That's also in the show notes. If you are a parent with a high needs child, reach out to Brandy. If you are a parent, period, looking for community, my membership will open later this summer. And my dad is here to change the damn world with this podcast. Yes. He does not have a website.
I think I need to retire immediately and devote full time to this.
Right.
I'm getting excited because there's a lot of opportunity and there's a lot of knowledge out there. How do we get tapped into that? How do we help parents?
Well, I tasked you last week with, you were asking me, like, give me something to do.
Yes, ma'am.
How can I help? Ma'am. What can I do? Put me to work and
change the damn world.
Right.
I'm on it.
Right.
I'm on it.
So I sent him. Great. I tasked you with, or delegated you finding sponsors for the podcast so that we will start running ads, and running ads for companies that we align with, of course, and are also on a mission to change the world, to help parents, to serve kids, and all of those things. And then, little things along the way, like I love Zoa energy drinks, and they have the healthiest ingredients of any energy drink I've found. So
start using merch from vendors.
Right.
And
so
stuff,
if I can get The Rock to sponsor my parenting podcast, that would be awesome.
He's on my list. I already called him. He is worldwide. I'm waiting to hear from these people.
Right.
The thought I'm having here too and have been working on this week is we need to form a network with people like Brandy that cross-refer one another.
Well, we are.
So
That's
it's like,
what I mean. That's part of this,
well,
getting
but
people on the
then a little
show, and now
more,
like
I
we're
mean, people
all
have
in
to, we don't
touch.
want people to have to listen to 375 hours of podcasts to get or go through all the descriptions. I'm thinking about a little web page where you have reciprocal agreements to say, okay, Brandy, when you have a more general
Like
question,
Peanut.
you might mention us. Like Peanuts?
There's an app that's like that.
I figured. Thank you. Peanuts,
I don't know
really?
if it's
Like the comic strip?
well,
Interesting.
it's like a peanut. I think its image is like a peanut.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I will check that out,
think,
and then we'll work on reciprocal agreements, amongst us people trying to change the world a little bit, and figure out how to do it full time.
Like referral relationships, you mean?
Yeah. And
refer
support
each other
so
to
we can,
to each other.
So we're not, we're not having to do other jobs or whatever, or can do it as much as we can, but share our knowledge and make it possible to devote time to it.
Yeah, Brandy, and this is, I guess, in my head goes without saying, but I've had conversations with some of our other guests before and after the show, and that's part of why I wanted to do this and to start, and that's why I put the post in the Schmilly universe in our business club of like 2,000 plus people, is because I wanted to elevate the women that are on this entrepreneurial journey beside me. And we're in our Facebook group and we're uplifting each other and we're learning all all how to run a business, and sharing our struggles and sharing our triumphs in the group. And it makes a huge difference. Like I would not be here without that group. And so I put
Have to
out the
support.
hey, I'm starting a podcast, here's the requirements, here's what I'm looking for from my guests, parents, child experts, parenting experts, etc. And in like a week, I had 25 call appointments set up with different women in the group who were experts in childcare or this realm in some way. And it absolutely blew me away. One, to get that level of response, but two, like every single person I have talked to, including you, Brandy, I'm like, I want to be friends with you. Like we've only ever known each other virtually, but there is a caliber of women who have set out to be entrepreneurs and change the world in their corner of it, and inside their expertise. And so in building the podcast, I've built these relationships, and these relationships are now like we are an even tighter referral group for one another. And so like if there is a parent who has a high needs child, and I'm like, this is out of my scope of expertise, I'm going to be like, I got somebody for you. Here's Brandy. Like,
exactly.
Yeah. And it's so, it's literally like, it literally like gives, like breathes life into me whenever I have a day where I'm like, fuck entrepreneurship. This is so hard. I'm so lost, or there's too many things, or whatever it might
you don't have enough
be.
people. You don't have staff to delegate to. It is hard.
Yeah.
That's why not everybody does it. It's requires a lot of skills, and you don't necessarily have them all when you're starting out. Absolutely. That's why we got.
But there's a mission, and it's like the mission keeps us. The mission gets us started. And someday, in a lot of days, the mission is the only thing that keeps me going. But this community that we are in, the club that we are in, and then additionally, this community of men and women who have agreed to be guests on the podcast, and diving even deeper inside of that community has been it literally keeps me going. And so that's why, and I'm sure your reasoning is similar. I'm like, shit, I'm going to start a membership, because something that's ongoing, like there's value in one-on-one coaching. Like when you have very specific personal things that you want to work on inside of yourself and inside of your family. And there's a place for like an 8 or 10 or 12 week deep dive group coaching program and in an intimate setting. But then the ongoing membership, where you are constantly being held accountable, where you are constantly have a place to go and find that support group and find those relationships and find the people in your city and like meet up and have, coffee or get the kids together for a play date with someone that you actually want to like be friends with.
That's right.
I would never have started any of it if I hadn't done all of those things myself and been like, whoa, like this makes life so much better.
Yeah.
That's my rant.
I found Peanut. Cool.
So a place to list all of our guests and all of their information, to find them all in one place. Is that what that is?
One ring to rule them all.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. We'll work on something like that.
Well, I hope everyone has continued to listen to our rambling at the end of the episodes. Brandy, thank you so much for being here. So much information that you shared, I think will help a lot of people and help people in the doctor's office and help people just not feel so alone.
And get ready for the doctor's office at home.
Mm-hmm.
And they know where to go now for those questions.
Good. Thank you.
There's an advocate in the world.
For sure.
Awesome. All right. We will see you all next week. Well, did you learn anything new? Or have you heard all of this before? Do you agree with us, disagree with us, have a question? We want to see you in our inbox or via the Patreon page in the show notes. Tap on either link to send us your feedback, share your own parenting story, or support our mission of providing a connected community for all parents. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you loved this episode, click on that little star and give us 5 of them so we can get visible to other parents who are looking for us. This is your weekly reminder. Parents, you already have everything you need inside of you. You are a strong, loving, capable parent. And here, you are never alone. I'll see you next week.